If you would like to get your query letter critiqued, but you do not want to pay for that to happen, you can get it done for free. The caveat is it will be public out here on my TikTok channel. My name is Gina. I am an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. A couple of caveats before we dive in. If you would like to submit yours, the information on how to do so is in my bio. There is a real live person on the other side of this query letter. We are not mocking. We are being constructive, not destructive. Everybody is on a journey. We are all here to learn together. And also, this person has decided that they are querying, that they are pursuing traditional publication. They are a grown-up. They can make their own choices. They do not need you to tell them how to live their life and tell them that they should just self-publish because that's what you were doing. Leave them alone. They're grown-ups. They can make their own choices. All of that out of the way, let's dive in. The Reluctant Mentor is a 70,000-word fantasy comedy satirizing the hero's journey from the perspective of a failed wizard mentor. I love that as a concept, as an idea. You're going to go ahead and turn that all into numerals, so 70,000. Fantasy comedy doesn't need to be capitalized, and the rest of this, that is fine. When we have two things in a row that are like stylistically kind of iffy, it makes everybody kind of have their antenna up of like, all right, what else are we going to get wrong? So just like clean up those little things because they're really easy to do, and then we can focus on the story and not on like those little things. Well, when you look at the wizards like Merlin or Gandalf, okay, we're not going to direct our letter directly to somebody like that. You're going to dive in directly with character. Everybody who is going to be reading this query, so whether this is an agent or an acquiring editor or even slush readers, interns, like people who are not yet professional agents but are semi-professional readers, they know what you meant. Satirizing the hero's journey, they know exactly what you mean. You don't have to go in and explain it to them afterwards, right? So the ones that we talk about, less extraordinary. So again, we're explaining ourselves. Meet Athragast. I don't know what I was thinking when I decided I was going to read people's query letters out loud on the internet, because I am absolutely terrible at pronouncing names, and that is when they are real people's names in the real world. And now here I am trying to do this with fantasy names. It's out of my mind. Standalone novel inspired by Discworld, Orconomics, and Darkwood. So saying that it is inspired by is a way to like try to get around that comp title, but this is, I mean, you know that's too big, that's too old. And when you say that you're satirizing fantasy, everybody's brain immediately went to Terry Pratchett anyway. So I don't think that this is, again, doing anything for you. I think you're wasting kind of a lot of space by saying a bunch of stuff that you don't actually need to say. These other two, they do look like they are like good, like you understand the vibe that you are going for. Orconomics is too old and it is self-published. Darkwood is fine. So this one's really pretty small, but it does demonstrate that, hey, somebody else paid for this, so maybe a publisher is still willing to pay for this. This is in the last couple of years. Orconomics, again, looks like you got the right vibe. You know what it is that you are writing, but this is self-published. So that is apples and oranges when we were talking about selling something to traditional publishing. When it comes to the readership, readers don't tend to care where the book came from, but traditional publishers are going to want to see like, is there a space for somebody to pay our prices for this thing? Athragast has been a wizard for many years, doing the usual wizardly things like reading old books, teaching private students. Okay, so this is backstory and this is funny, but this is backstory. So we want to dive in, and not with like, as a younger man, he thought he'd become a hero after many years of disappointment. All he wants to do is retire on a beach somewhere, preferably off the magical grid. So I would start here. So Athragast is a failed wizard. He wants to just retire off the magical grid. So start with where he is right now, not what he's been doing for his entire life. That's all backstory. That doesn't belong in the query letter. You're, again, wasting all that valuable real estate on stuff that is not the here and now in your story. And then actually, if we get down farther in here, now we're getting into more of your voice, which is actually really funny. So the Academy selects him. Everyone else was busy for a challenging mission with a large enough payout to fund his retirement. So yeah, start here at the retirement. We don't need all of this. You already told us that it's satirizing in a failed wizard. You already gave us that information. You don't need to repeat it in a different way. Start down here where things are already being very funny. This is another thing that I often say to people when we were talking about query letters. Do not tell me that your book is funny. Be funny in the query letter. Do not tell me that your book is tense. Show me tension on the page in the query letter. Demonstrate that you have the skills that you are trying to sell. Determined to have a fate different from most other wizards, they tended to fall off towers to get kidnapped by large birds. He agrees to go on one last quest, armed with his most magical possession, a ballpoint pen, and an unlikely animal companion. I like the parentheticals. I think that that is funny. I don't know if everyone's going to love that, though. There's a lot of them. And a joke like this, it's always going to be tough to decide, like, did you do it too many times, or did you do it enough times that it came back around and it kept being funny? Get a lot of feedback from a bunch of other people who also read comedy in this format. I think this is funny. I think this works, but this is super, super subjective. There's going to be a lot of different opinions about whether or not the parenthetical joke is landing. So he travels to the capital to inform the prince that it's his destiny to save the world. I do like that you are shining the spotlight on the story pieces that are relevant to your genre. So specifically, you are writing this satire, you are writing this comedy, you are shining the spotlight on those things, and you're like, yeah, there's like a capital and a prince and whoever, whatever. So I like that you understand what the draw is to your story. Wants to convince him that it's his destiny to save the world. The prince, being rather wealthy and having better things to do, refuses the job, but the world needs saving it, and Athorgast needs retirement like an ogre needs a bath. So really, what doesn't matter to Destiny whether he gets the prince to do it or some random bloke off the street? I cannot see the rest of that. I'm going to be right back. All right, so he's got to convince the prince that it's his destiny to save the world. Prince doesn't want to do it, so he's going to convince some random guy to do it instead. What are the 5 questions that we are trying to get answered in a query letter? Who is our main character? Athorgast. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry. Don't correct me. I'm okay. Our failed wizard guy, what is it that he wants? He wants to retire. What is standing in his way? He's broke. He's bad at being a wizard, so he didn't make very much money doing it. So what is he willing to do to get it? He's willing to technically come out of retirement or pull one last job. So this is giving very much like the vein of, what's that movie Red, where the heist, the criminals have to come out of retirement to be criminals again, or like CIA operatives or whatever. Like that's sort of the vibe that I am getting here. Picturing like a very cranky, like John Malkovich character, right? That's who I'm getting here. What happens if he fails is something like the world's probably not going to get saved. That's not super, super clear here. I would clarify that, and I would break this paragraph up better. This is a big old like paragraphopotamus. This is too many words all in one big block. Break it up into smaller pieces. That would probably actually help with the parentheticals as well, if you don't have as many of them like looking like they're all part of the same sentence. I know that they're not actually part of the sentence, but visually they're all very much in a row. If you have more white space on the page, it can help sell that joke as well. Okay, so this one's actually in pretty good shape overall. We want to do some like clean up to make it present a little bit better than it's presenting right now. So we want to clean up some of the little tiny stylistic things up top. We want to get rid of this really big old like industry standard setting, like gold standard for satire. We want to take that out of there. We want to find some stuff that is a little bit more comparable, a little bit newer. And if you are struggling to find comp titles, go talk to a librarian. It is very difficult to get out of the algorithm when you are just looking for stuff out here on the internet by yourself, because the algorithm is always going to try to sell you the biggest, the best, the newest, all of the same stuff over and over and over again. Go talk to a librarian. They would love very, very much to put new, underrated, overlooked books in your hands. Go talk to a librarian, update this section here, make sure that we get comp titles that are in the last 2 to 3 years. They do not necessarily need to be satire, but if you are looking for something that is like fun and lighthearted, and we are seeing a trend towards cozy fantasy, is this cozy? Is this really epic? Are we actually saving the world, or is it really about seeking out retirement? I would clarify that as well. We are seeing a push towards more of this cozy fantasy, so this is just, maybe this is lighthearted. That word count is quite low for fantasy, so this makes me think that it's not actually about saving the world, but it really more is about like, I really want to retire, leave me alone. So like clarify that a little bit more clearly. Are we actually going to try to save the world, or is this cozier? Find some comps that are more recent, that are more accurate. The Darkwood can stay, the other two need to go, sorry. Break this up into 2 or 3 paragraphs, cut a bunch of the like, I told you what I'm already going to tell you and I'm telling you again stuff up here. And then I really like get some more feedback on those parentheticals. I think it's funny. Not everybody thinks the same things are funny. So this is a very, very niche story. You're going to have a hard time finding somebody to pick this up, because fantasy is already a really small piece of the market, and now we are going and satirizing that very small piece of the market. This is very, very niche. You want to make sure that you are pitch perfect and that you are landing in the right inboxes with the right tone here. Just because I think it's funny doesn't mean that that joke is necessarily going to always land, but I love the concept of this. I love the idea here.